Hello, my name is Jenny Lambert. I'm really pleased to be part of this Be the Difference initiative, and I look forward to sharing some of my journey with you for the next 10 minutes. I started, as a country kid in a small, relatively small, only about 500 students, country high school, not too far from Sydney. It was an eternity away when I was growing up. Doesn't seem so far away now in the Southern Highlands, but certainly I started, that was a very modest school, a lot of kids from a lot of different backgrounds, not very many children then when they've left school went on to university. Even though university was free, it certainly wasn't available to the majority of people. You had to score very high, to get into uni. And most of my time spent at high school was never thinking that I would go on to study post school. I was thinking that I'd be interested in an outdoor job. I looked at the army or the police or forestry, or of course, my very early stage, like most kids, I thought I'd be a teacher, which of course would have required going on to do further study. But something really changed for me in year 11. So just around 16, 17 years of age, I did have an interest already in history. I was always interested in current affairs and history, and I picked up and read All the President's Men, which was a book around the Watergate scandal, which was only a few years past when I was at school. So it was still fairly recent in people's memory. And that really changed my interest in, I was fascinated by the politics, fascinated by all the intrigue of Washington, and that caused me to read more and more. I was always a very strong and active reader, but it caused me to read more and more. And even though my parents or none of my immediate family had ever been to university, indeed my father never finished high school, and certainly our background itself was very modest. If you want to talk in terms of class, we were definitely from a working class sort of background. So anyway, I decided that I did want to go on to study university, and chose a uni that I didn't know much about unis, but I chose a uni that had American politics on its curricula, and as it turned out, that was Sydney Uni. So I went off and did a Bachelor of Economics there, and supported my way through uni. Did various jobs, including became a member of the Army Reserve, and I stayed with the Army Reserve and became an officer in the Army Reserve up to the rank of captain for about 14 years. So I certainly dedicated and learned a lot through that period. But primarily my career has been about working for business. I mean, I actually started as a share analyst with an insurance company, and then did that for about 18 months. But I really wanted to work more on human issues, human resource issues and the like. So, and I really enjoyed industrial relations and the law when I was at uni. So I went on to look for jobs in that area, and got my first job in an industry association and about 2 years out of uni, and that was with the Australian Hotels Association. And there started a career that's gone for 36 years for me. I've worked in various industry associations. I've now worked for the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and I've been in this role for 9 years. I work in policy around education and vocational education and training, and I do a lot of work in the vocational training space. In fact, before I went to uni, I did a year studying what's now called a business admin certificate, and got a lot of skills, including keyboarding skills, as they call it now. And but then, of course, we didn't even have computers. We just had typewriters, manual typewriters mostly. It's just showing my age again. So you wouldn't even understand what a manual typewriter is, perhaps, unless you've seen it on the movies. So, but certainly that's what I learned on, and that stood me in good stead, because when I was at uni, and to have shorthand and typing was unbelievably different, and to even have a typewriter as I did, I used to earn extra dollars from typing out other people's assignments, because it was not normal to have a typed assignment, and so people used to give me their handwritten assignments and theses to type them up so they could hand them in typewritten. So it was a different era then, but it was amazing what those vocational and very practical skills did for me. The other really important thing is, I don't know whether you found it, but But I think once you leave primary school, they don't really stress the importance of basic grammar, where to put commas and, how to structure a sentence. And one of the things that the very practical course in vocational training showed me was that you need to structure your business correspondence really well. And boy, has that stood me in good stead for the rest of my career, both at uni and also in life. So I think even those basic skills can be really important as you get through life. So, I mean, I've spent now 36 years as someone working in industry associations such as the Chamber, but I also had 16 years as a chief executive. I ran 4 different organisations: Nursery and Garden Industry Association, National Tourism Alliance, Restaurant and Catering Association, and the Meetings and Events Association. So mostly in the service and tourism and hospitality economy, but Nursery and Garden was an interesting experience running an association that represented all those nurseries and garden centres out there that are so good at producing green life for homes and for businesses and for landscaping in general. So it was it's really a really great career. It's not one of those things you think about when you're at school, I'm going to work for an industry association, but you do think a lot about working in policy. I mean, I do a lot of policy and advocacy, so I develop ideas on how we can do things better as a country, how we can do things better that makes business work easier, but also can work for the community. So I've done a lot of work thinking about policy, including in employment policy, how to get young people into jobs and what are the things that young people need in terms of skills. So I've done a lot of work in that area, and it's been really satisfying over the years working through the various policy issues, and then doing a lot of work with politicians and other stakeholders, regulators, public sector. I've not worked much in the public sector other than when I was in the Army Reserve, but certainly working for business and making sure that we get the best possible outcomes for Australia. So that's been really satisfying. It's been a great career. Working in policy in any area, whether it be public sector or private sector, is certainly something that people who were interested in current affairs and interested in making a difference, that's certainly something for you to think about. I mean, one of the things that in terms of my highs, in my career, I've had plenty of highs. I mean, certainly in my 16 years as a chief executive, it's been really satisfying getting the best out of a team. Working through issues, working with boards on setting up strategic plans. All of that has been great. In my time at the Australian Chamber, I've twice been the lead representative or delegate to the International Labour Organisation, the ILO, which is the labour arm of the United Nations, and as the Australian representative of employers. And so that's been really interesting, going to Geneva. I've been there now four times, and represented employers on anything from migration through to their annual labour conference, and working through issues on an international basis as well as on a national basis. That's been really, really satisfying. But I guess more than anything else, it's really satisfying to see working hard on developing good policy and see it come to fruition, with government passing legislation that reflects some of what we've been putting forward. That's really satisfying. And also in my various roles, as I've moved from association to association, and I don't like moving quickly or often, but every 5 or 6 years, moving and having them thank me for the role that we've done. So that's been very satisfying for me in my career. So excuse me. In terms of my 16-year-old self, I mean, I had, and I'd really highly recommend, passion for reading, and I mean, a passion for reading can really just take you anywhere. It can take you into fantasy world. I mean, I still now, after all these years, and after my kids picked up Harry Potter, I love to read that. My reading interests are varied, and even as an adult, I can still get into those types of books. I love reading, and I certainly love reading a whole range of non-fiction books as well as fiction books throughout my life, and that really helps to give you some ideas about what the rest of the world is like. I think I think there's nothing better than in your own thinking about what your government, what you think about what government policies are, or the next time you have to vote in an election, or whatever. There's nothing better than to be well informed, and I'm passionate about reading widely and the power of education. Obviously, I did a Bachelor of Economics and also an MBA, but at various other times I've done. I mean, when I was a share analyst for the first 2 years out of uni, I started work. I did some investment courses at the Securities Institute, and I've done a few law courses along the way. So, I mean, all these things just add to your knowledge and awareness. And I think that passion for lifelong learning is something that I highly recommend you develop early, just in time, even just picking up the stuff that you enjoy reading. Because there's nothing better than getting some inspiration and escaping into someone else's story and understanding that story. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is that obviously I've got 2 girls of my own now, 2 adult girls, and they've gone through uni as well, and they've had the benefit of having parents that have had qualifications. Unlike me, I had to sort of find my own way to uni in a sense of I didn't really have those examples around me, but they've had that benefit. But they've got a super passionate desire for reading as well, and they love to engage on current affairs and issues, and I guess they get that from someone who's someone in our home life where those things have been highly valued, even just by example. So I think the more you can read and develop that interest, the more you pass it on to your children as well. And I think that's, from a personal point of view, that's very satisfying as a parent, they've got the future benefit of that. So I mean, it's really been a great journey for me, and it's something that I think my experience shows that it doesn't matter what background you come from. It doesn't matter whether you come from a family that's well-to-do and able to fund education in the best schools. I mean, or you come from a background like me, just gone through the public school system, and I worked my way through uni and made my own way in life and have come out the other side very, very pleased with that. So you can take those paths yourself. I mean, and hopefully you will have a satisfying career in the way that I have, and hopefully that can translate into a broader interest in life and current affairs and as I say, civil society, and being engaged in what's going on around you in your community, in your state, in your country, in the world. I mean, all of these things do matter, and we can be all active participants in making sure that our world and the world of our kids is as good as it can be. So be the difference, make the difference, and I've really enjoyed spending a little bit of time with you today. Thanks very much.